It all began in a quiet, cookie-cutter suburb nestled just outside a major city, one of those places where every lawn looks the same, every mailbox stands perfectly aligned, and the homeowners association rules are treated with the same seriousness as federal law. For most residents, life under the HOA was tolerable, annoying at times, sure, but manageable. But not for one man, not for the guy who dared to own a perfectly legal, slightly beat-up but still functioning pickup truck. The truck in question wasn't flashy. It wasn't lifted or painted neon green, it didn't leak oil or block the sidewalk. It was just old. Faded red paint, a few dings, and a bed full of tools and materials from its owner's weekend projects. It was the kind of truck that had seen better days but still had plenty of life left in it. It sat in the driveway, minding its own business, parked neatly and quietly between a manicured lawn and a regulation height mailbox. But for the HOA president, Marlene, retired, power-hungry, and the self-appointed neighborhood aesthetic enforcer, that truck was a personal insult. She hated it with a passion that bordered on obsession. She claimed it lowered the visual standard of the neighborhood and called it an eyesore in monthly meetings, newsletters, and passive-aggressive flyers stuffed into mailboxes. Soon enough, the complaints started piling up. At first, they were small. A warning notice tucked under the windshield wiper, a letter stating that the truck violated community guidelines concerning the appearance of vehicles. The exact clause was vague at best and highly subjective, which is exactly how Marlene liked it. No specifics, just enough wiggle room for her to make a case against something she personally didn't like. The truck's owner, a man named Jake, initially brushed it off. He was a rule-abiding homeowner, paid his dues, kept his lawn trim, and had read the HOA bylaws backwards and forwards. Nowhere did it say he couldn't park a vehicle in his own driveway, especially one that was registered, insured, and didn't obstruct anything. But Marlene was relentless. When the warnings didn't work, the fines started rolling in. $50 for aesthetic disruption, then $100, then $200 for failure to comply with vehicle standards. She even tried to claim that the truck constituted commercial signage because Jake occasionally had magnetic decals on it for his side business in home repairs. Each fine came with escalating threats. Continued non-compliance may result in legal action, they said. Jake contested each one, filing formal appeals with the board. But surprise, surprise, the board, stacked with Marlene's friends, always voted against him. He wasn't just fighting fines anymore. He was fighting a system rigged against him. It wasn't about the truck. It was about control. And Jake realized that if he didn't push back soon, they'd find some new way to make his life miserable. That's when he got an idea. A petty, brilliant, HOA-breaking idea. Jake decided that if Marlene hated the color and condition of his truck so much, maybe he should make it fit in with the neighborhood a little more, literally. Over the course of a weekend, while Marlene was out of town visiting her daughter, Jake got to work. He stripped the truck down and repainted it himself. Not red, not black, not any normal car color. He painted it HOA beige. Not just any beige either. He had taken paint chips from several homes in the neighborhood and had a custom color mixed that matched the exact shade used on the HOA office building itself. It was bland. It was boring. It was regulation. The truck now blended in so well, it almost disappeared against the backdrop of the community's vinyl-sided houses. But Jake didn't. Stop there. After repainting it, he removed the decals and scrubbed it clean. He gave it a wash and polish, even shined the tires. Then, in a move that would make even the most seasoned petty revenge experts proud, he parked it on his front lawn. Not the driveway, not the street, right on the grass, dead center, where everyone could see it, facing the HOA office across the cul-de-sac. The best part? There was no rule against it. The HOA had a ban on commercial vehicles on lawns. They had a ban on unregistered vehicles. They even had rules about recreational vehicles being stored out front. But a freshly painted, registered, non-commercial truck parked on a personal lawn? That loophole hadn't been closed, yet. Neighbors noticed immediately. Some chuckled. Others gave him thumbs up on their morning walks. But it didn't take long for Marlene to return and see the monstrosity. She nearly crashed her golf cart pulling up to Jake's house. And the next morning, sure enough, Jake received a new letter. This time, a threat of escalated enforcement measures if he didn't remove the truck from his lawn within 48 hours. But Jake was ready. He had photographed the entire repainting process. He had recordings of past HOA meetings where Marlene specifically praised uniform neutral tones that maintain harmony in the community. He even printed out the section of the bylaws that detailed vehicle and lawn usage and highlighted the relevant lines. Nowhere did it say he couldn't have a beige truck on his grass. The power struggle had shifted. Jake wasn't just defending his truck anymore. He was waging war against the weaponized pettiness of HOA leadership, and Marlene, once so confident in her reign, now found herself up against a homeowner who not only knew the rules, but knew how to use them. The first day, she tried intimidation. The second, she tried community shaming. By the third, she attempted a vote to have Jake's truck declared a permanent fixture, which would give the HOA grounds to force its removal. But Jake wasn't done yet. He had a second phase of revenge planned, something so ridiculous and over the top that it would force the HOA to either back off completely or destroy itself trying to fight it. And that's where the real fun began. The HOA beige truck parked squarely in the middle of Jake's front lawn had already caused a neighborhood stir. Kids laughed every time they passed it, joking that it looked like a house-shaped car or a misplaced garage door. Even the mailman snapped a photo for his buddies. But for Marlene, the HOA president, it was no laughing matter. She called it visual terrorism. By the end of the week, Jake had received no fewer than 5 additional warnings from the HOA. Each one was more desperate and poorly worded than the last. He was accused of violating neighborhood spirit, decorum, and in one bizarre letter, the harmony of community hues. But Jake knew none of it had legal footing. The bylaws were intentionally vague, and he had studied them inside and out. If the HOA pushed this to court, they'd be laughed out. Still, Jake wasn't done. If his HOA beige truck on the lawn had triggered a meltdown, he figured it was time for phase 2. Turn the truck into a monument to compliance, the ultimate satirical middle finger to Marlene's crusade for visual unity. Over the next few days, Jake went full suburban Michelangelo. He constructed a small white picket fence around the truck, regulation height of course. He landscaped around it with HOA-approved flower beds. He installed solar-powered lights that lit it up softly at night. And just to drive the point home, he added a wooden plaque in front that read, Community Standard Vehicle, in full compliance with HOA Code, FAR 12.4.7.3b. It was glorious. Some neighbors thought it was an art installation. Others assumed it was a protest. But most, they loved it. Jake had unintentionally tapped into a shared frustration that many homeowners felt but had never dared to express. The HOA had long been known for nitpicking, the wrong shade of mulch, bird feeders in the front yard, flags not properly angled, and Jake's truck became a symbol of rebellion wrapped in beige paint and bureaucratic mockery. Marlene, however, was losing control, and not just figuratively. In a desperate move, she called an emergency board meeting. The agenda: declare Jake's truck a decorative structure and invoke a clause that prohibited non-permanent architectural installations not approved by the architectural committee. The irony was delicious. Jake had already anticipated this. He had submitted paperwork to the HOA just days earlier, requesting formal approval for a temporary art display on his lawn, describing it as a visual exploration of modern conformity in suburban America. He included artist statements, printouts of HOA-approved color palettes, and even a mock-up of the display with captions like, Celebrating Neighborhood Neutrality. And the kicker? The submission had been approved, accidentally, by one of the junior board members who had no idea what it actually was. With that approval in hand, Jake now had a signed and dated green light for his truck installation, valid for 60 days. Marlene was livid, but it didn't end there. Jake uploaded a short video to a neighborhood Facebook group explaining the situation. No names, just a calm, cheeky breakdown of the truck's transformation and the absurd lengths he had to go to for it to be acceptable. The video was picked up by a local news outlet, then a regional one. Before long, it hit a few viral HOA horror social media pages and snowballed from there. Within a week, Jake's truck was internet famous. People from across the country commented in support, sharing their own HOA nightmare stories. The hashtag #BeigeTruckRebellion started trending in niche corners of Twitter. News crews showed up in the neighborhood trying to interview residents. Marlene, once the unquestioned gatekeeper of the HOA, was now dodging reporters and board recall rumors. The board was imploding. At the next HOA meeting, the clubhouse was packed, far more than usual. For the first time, homeowners who normally stayed silent were speaking up. They questioned Marlene's leadership, her use of fines as intimidation, and the blatant misuse of vague rules to target specific residents. Petitions circulated, voices were raised. Then came the vote. A motion was introduced to amend the HOA's bylaws, adding stricter language to prevent abuse of subjective fines and arbitrary aesthetic enforcement. It passed. Another motion followed, one to remove Marlene as HOA president due to a pattern of personal bias, selective enforcement, and misuse of authority. That passed too. Marlene was out. Jake didn't cheer or gloat. He stayed calm, professional, and let the system work. He didn't need to scream or shout. His truck had done all the talking. Within days, the new HOA board sent Jake a letter officially voiding all previous fines and apologizing for the miscommunication regarding vehicle guidelines. It was the closest thing to a public apology Marlene had ever issued. Jake let the truck stay on the lawn for exactly 60 days, in compliance with his art display approval. On the final day, he gently rolled it back into the driveway and mowed the lawn beneath it. Then, as a final touch, he added a bumper sticker to the back of the truck that read, "This vehicle was HOA approved." And that was it. The truck stayed beige. The new HOA board updated the bylaws to add clarity and prevent abuse. Neighbors who once lived in fear of petty enforcement started speaking out more. And Jake? He went back to his normal life. Well, sort of. Every once in a while, someone would drive by, slow down, and snap a picture of the truck in the driveway. To most people, it looked like just another beige pickup, but to those who knew the story, it was so much more. It was proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's lawful, it's clever, and occasionally it's painted beige.